like the human brain. So it's the idea is to try and mimic the human brain. And I think
Yeah.
one advantage that AI would have over the human brain is its ability to retain information. And because it can retain information better than a human brain can, that means it always has information that it can access to sort of
Yeah.
analyze whatever it is or draw whatever what are these things called in maths? But to connect the dots, there's always information that is easily accessible compared to a child's brain, as you would have mentioned in this regard. However, we also have to take into account that it takes more than a child's brain or a human brain. This has a collective of all of our brains. For example, how many times do we Google things? We Google
Yeah.
so many
Quite a
things.
lot. Quite a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is in itself a whole lot of information, right? So, and obviously, how a human brain develops is that at some point it starts recognizing patterns and whatnot, and this is how these models are developed also to recognize these models and sort of improve some of these models if there is room for improvement. Because remember, they're not biological, so you can you can make them do what you want them to do, like. And I think it shouldn't come as a shocker that these things are doing whatever it is that they're doing. And even like with reference to the article by OpenAI, I think their shock is, I don't believe in their shock. I think their shock is yeah, yeah. I think their shock is more so to say to the world that, oh, we're also on your side. At least we are also equally as shocked as you guys. But what are they trying to do? Isn't that what they are trying to get out of this? The best product they can get, something that does beyond what they are trying to do.
I mean, fair enough. Um, Fair enough. So you think that they're just trying to make us feel better, to not get scared and shocked that, hey, you guys are the ones that are developing this, but you come out and not explain to us. So when they tell us that they're also shocked, we're like, oh, okay, at least they also don't know what's happening.
Yes, it becomes a collective shock that, okay, we're in this struggle together and we're discovering this thing together. But
Amen.
are they not going to capitalize on
Yeah.
that? Are they not going to improve on that shock for it to actually become more of a shock factor? I don't know.
I mean, Vela for them, that's what they're striving to build, right? They are striving
Yeah.
to build. They call it what do they call it? Artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, sort of AGI. That's what they call it. They
Yeah.
want to reach that level where a computer system or an AI model functions like a human brain or like a human, right? So right
Yes,
now,
yes, yes.
when you an AI system only knows what it has been trained to know and a little bit more. So now when you take a system and you place it in a different and a foreign environment, it will struggle because it's not familiar with the environment, doesn't know anything that's in the environment. So obviously it will struggle to
Yeah.
function because it doesn't know nothing. It only knows what it has been trained as for now. So they are looking to
Yes.
get to that point where when you have an AI system, even if you took an AI system and then you put it in Mars, it will still be able to function with a whole different
Yes.
set of information. So that's what they're looking to get. So
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, yeah.
when their systems start doing things like this, it's slowly drifting towards that. So I would agree with you to say that they're not as shocked as we think that they are. So
Yeah, I
because it's
also
what they
don't think
want.
so.
It's what they want.
Yeah, because I think another thing is that the information that we have now about the AI models is probably what they would have had. The information they would have had that information for probably at least a year or even more. Like for example, when OpenAI launched the first version of ChatGPT had been in the works for a couple of years prior to that, and so that it had been training in the time. And obviously, at the time when it was launched, it was decent enough, but it wasn't at this level, right? But what we
Of
have
course.
to acknowledge that now we start what's this engaging with these models, and as we engage with these systems, That's information. Every letter you type, that is information. And you can imagine how the world has changed since the introduction of AI, and how we can cheat in universities using AI, how people can do their work using AI. People can do songs using AI. So much can be done with using AI, and people obviously are looking to exploit these systems and use them to the best of their ability. Right. That's where we
Yeah.
feed it the information, because we're so desperate to get the best output out of this. So, and we're feeding it information and information. I think since ChatGPT has been launched, it's been given enough information to run at probably at a very like optimum level. Like it has consumed so much, and I don't know what you said about their shop.
You know what concerns me so much, man.
Yeah.
I understand you, I hear you, and I agree with you, right? But you know what
Mm,
worries me and scares me is that, you know, a human brain is wired to remember things. We
mm,
have memory in our brain, so we
yes.
can remember things. So I can remember what you
Yes.
said a couple of seconds ago, all right? I can even try
Yes.
to remember
Yes.
vividly what we spoke about when we started a conversation, right? In a split second.
Yes.
But an AI
Yes.
system does not, it is not capable of remembering anything unless it reads it again. You get me? So it would need to go back and read all everything that you have been. Let's say maybe I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT. I type
Mm,
a message and then it responds to that message. And then I type another message at that instant moment. All right. If I were to look into the thought process of ChatGPT, it wouldn't know what I'm speaking about. If, let's say, I'm referencing to something that I said in my earlier message, it would have to go back to the message and reread it again, get context, and then come back to the message that I just sent now, and then start replying. You get me?
yeah.
So
I
and
get
that is
that.
because they themselves OpenAI even said that it's because it functions that almost all AI models function like that because they are not conscious, so they don't
Fair.
know what they're doing. It's just a bunch of numbers and patterns and a lot of mathematics, complex mathematics that's happening in the background, and then we get that illusion that, oh, this thing is actually thinking. This thing is actually smart. I mean, at first value, that's what you would think, of course. Yeah, this thing is pretty smart, right? But you get to learn the intricate processes that happen behind the scenes when you tap the hi ChatGPT to it replying to hi, how can I assist you today? You didn't understand that, no, man, this thing is a machine at the end of the day. It's not conscious, it's not aware of anything. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros, a lot of complex mathematics, and all of that. You get me? So now, for that thing, that very same thing, it's not conscious, it's not aware of anything. For that thing to be able to adapt and learn things that it weren't trained to learn. I get that you train a system. When you train a system, machine learning, I've taken a couple of courses and I've done a couple of readings on machine learning. So, what I've discovered is that when you train a machine, what it does, even if it learns new information based
Mm,
off of how it was trained. You get me? So if you train a machine to,
yeah.
let's say, you train it to become a malware detector, something like that. So
Yeah.
it will do that at the best of its capacity, right? So it will, even if it learns new things, it will still be in the same domain. It will be, so it will not jump,
Mm,
it will not be able to go now and jump and learn about what, writing script or coding or let me say maybe healing people or detecting or reading x-rays because it wasn't trained for that. You get me? So this thing
I
was
get you.
trained to detect malware. So now, how is it able to learn about reading X-rays? So this is just a narrowed down example. I understand that ChatGPT is a multi-purpose and a multi-general AI model. So obviously, it appears to know
Yes.
everything and anything and everything. But I'm just trying to paint a picture of you and of where I am and where I'm coming from. Anton? So that's why
Yeah.
I'm so
I get you.
worried and concerned about this thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to mention specific models because I think it's been a while since I've done some of these stuff, so I don't know some of them from the top of my head. But what I do know,
Yeah,
what I've learned from the process was that when you design a model, it's not what's important is not necessarily the information that you're going to feed it. It's more about the model that's going to be processing the information. So that's like you're trying to wire the brain, right, to think in a specific
yeah,
way. And once you've gotten that that brain to think in a specific way, you put in information here, and then it gives you an output on the other side. And that information, obviously, as a designer of whatever app is that, I can say to the public, I've designed this model so that you guys can talk about it with your emotions, right? And why I would say that, it's not because of the brain, it's because of the information that I used to train the model with. So I, as the designer, have decided that, okay, this model that I'm designing is to help people who maybe like lonely elderly people, right? And then
yeah,
what in training that model, before I put it out to the public, I would feed it information around. I would feed it information around what elderly conversations would be like, so that it can carry those conversations out. And obviously, when I put it out there and then I market it to the elderly group of people, and then that's how they end up engaging with it, right? And that's how it was trained, sure. But now, let's say I'm not an elderly person. I can still access that application, right? And I get there on that application. I type whatever it is that I type, regardless of what the intended use of the app is. I use it for my own thing. That in itself is still information that feeds into into the system, and goes back to what you mentioned. They are not conscious, so it doesn't really know that I'm someone who's not elderly, right? But I'm engaging with it, and as I'm engaging with it, I'm feeding it information, and that information also goes into training. So the pre-training of the models happens behind doors, but the most of the training of the models happen when these things get into our hands, and we feed this system. The amount of information we feed to this information, the things that you probably wouldn't tell me or you wouldn't tell your closest friend, you are comfortable telling them to AI, because somewhat, some way,
crazy.
somehow, you feel like AI is not going to share them with anyone that you know, right? And that is training information. So like the models are forever in training.
Yeah,
They're not resting. They don't rest.
that
They
is
are forever resting. And I think earlier on you mentioned that how for AI to remember whatever it is that you said, it has to go back and reread that thing and whatnot. But that's the thing. It has access to the exact same words you said, as opposed to you and I. You said you could remember what I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, but I don't know if you can quote me word for word. You can allude to what I said in the beginning of the conversation, so we can get that concept, but it's not word for word. But what AI would have is literally everything you typed as it was. So that information is not changed. You know, like how gossip works. I tell you something, and then when you tell it to the next person, you use a different word, and that slightly changes the message. And then someone
yeah,
passes it
yeah.
to the next person, uses a different one, slightly changes. Yeah. So, but AI doesn't access that information as gossip. It accesses it directly from you. We trust these things with a lot. Like
So much, yeah, yeah,
we feed these
so
things. It
much.
shouldn't.
And
It shouldn't be a
that that
shocker.
that what makes it so powerful and scary at the same time. That people talk about the widest things they have done with this system. Something they wouldn't
Mm,
tell the person they trust the most, but they tell these things to these AI models. So that's why they are as powerful as they are, right? And they are as smart as they are,
yeah.
and they're still getting smarter than this, man. Give it like 10 years. In the next 10 years, we're gonna be in a different era, as far as technology and
Yeah.
life and human interaction is concerned. Which brings me to something I was just thinking about, how human connection is slowly taking a strong hit. Not even slowly, because now it's evident. At the advent of ICT revolution, or at the advent of technology revolution, looking at life now, maybe just your life now as compared to your life back in like 10, 15 years ago. All right. How you used to connect with people and how people connect now, and whether or not it feels genuine. Like, do you really feel like you're connecting with people more now as compared to how you connected with people back in the days? That so now there's more access to information. There's an easy access to everyone in the world, so it's easy for me. That's why we're able to speak because of technology. But now, if we
Yeah.
want to connect and how people are using these ICT technologies and at the advent of AI, how are we looking as humanity, and are we really understanding what is happening? And I'm thinking about this because we're speaking about AI and how people are sharing everything with AI and how people are connecting with these systems. Because it's a crazy thing to learn that. Because there's a couple of stories that I've read of people who had connected, and I mean connected. You see how a person would connect with another person. People have connected with an AI system. An AI system. They've connected at that deeper level. So it made me wonder, is it because people, we are in hunger or we are in short of real human connection that people end up connecting with AI systems? What do you think is the problem? Because I, if you look at this and you don't think it is a problem or there is an issue or there is something that needs to be fixed, I think then also that person is part of the problem. Because you can't tell me that
Yeah,
a
yeah, or maybe
human,
they're
a
just a
living
victim.
person with feelings, connecting with an AI system. I mean, as much as you connect, yeah, you sometimes get lost. You're chatting with this thing, and sometimes you're like, yeah, you forget that hey, this thing is an AI system. This thing is not alive. It's not conscious. All right, but then you come back to your senses, like, no man, this thing is not alive. All right. So for a person to connect with an AI system, with a tool to that level, what do you think drives that? Because as humans, we have other things. We have other human beings. I understand that maybe people are going through different things, but to get to a certain point where you connect, you say, now I'm connected with this AI system. Some people have had platonic relationships, non platonic relationships with AI systems. It's a crazy concept. There's a lot of scary things and
Yeah.
wildest things people do with these things. What do you think, man?
I think it's what you said, hunger. I think it's I think we have like most of us have like voids that we seek to feel, right? And I guess normally this would have been filled by human interacting with other humans and whatnot, right? But I think as we also mentioned that right now you're in a position where you are able to tell AI something that you wouldn't tell to your very close friend. And perhaps this is because this has always existed, that we've always kept stuff to ourselves, that there were certain things that we couldn't tell to the closest people that we were around. Not because AI suddenly came and we suddenly can't share this. I think it could be something that has always existed, and then AI has offered that platform for us now to start talking about these things. Like it's that I think it's the hunger, right? And
Yeah.
you know how see how we mentioned that earlier on, you can now trust AI with more things than you can trust like your closest friend. I think perhaps it is also because we've always low-key been like that. There's always been things that we kept to ourselves that we never really shared with other people, and AI has come and has given us that platform. And you think of like some of the strangest things that people Google, and I think it's similar to some of the strangest things that people would be comfortable feeding into AI. Uh, I think we are victims. It's those who are fortunate are those who become aware of the disruption that comes with this, right? And I think because your question is, do you forgot your exact question, but I think what's happening here is what happens with addictions. People have a void in themselves, and if something is going to fill that void, people are going to fall into it. And this is why I say we are victims. Because they could have easily scoped that, okay, these people, this is what's lacking. People are vulnerable in this, and this is where we are going to hit them, So, and then you become a victim of that, but it offers you that space. It fills that void, however temporary it may be, but it has filled in that void. And this would speak to even why people would date people that do not really like them or love them as much. It's because that person, for however long, they do feel in that void that they have. And I think it's the same thing that happens with AI. And I also do agree with you that it takes away from our normal livelihood. And you mentioned I should sort of reflect on how my life would have been 10 years or 15 years ago, and what that would have looked like. That would look like me going to school, and then when I come back from home from school, I disappear from the whole world, and I'll see them the following day. But in my disappearing from the people at school, I am interacting with other people where I am at home, not necessarily on the internet, depending on whether you would have had a phone or not. I would have a phone, sometimes I wouldn't have a phone, but my phone could only do so much on the internet, and data was a struggle also. So I really had to be in the physical world, and I had to interact with humans. And I think that is personally something that I've noted the internet has taken away from me personally, and I would want to believe some other people would experience the same thing. I don't think we're too occupied. We don't have time to listen. And this is more than just to other people, but we also don't have time to listen to ourselves. Like, as much as we don't have time to interact with other people and form connection with those people, we also don't have time to sit with ourselves and think, or just listen to whatever thoughts that come to our heads. And that is what technology has taken. Personally, I hate the internet. I use it, but I don't like it as much because it creates this illusion that it's a real world. I don't think it's a real world. And you mentioned some people have been attached to these things. Goes back to that void that I'm talking about. Found a void, okay, someone easily gets attached to that. AI doesn't have feelings, so it really doesn't really give too much concern as to whether you're okay or how your life ends up going after that. I don't think they are really much concerned about that, but it fills in that void. And you find that, let's say, for example, you're sitting at home. Instead of, like, maybe you don't know what to do. And the first thing that comes to your mind is you go online, maybe you go on WhatsApp, you check statuses. But what happens from WhatsApp taking status, you probably end up on Facebook or on Twitter or on TikTok or on YouTube or wherever. But it just ends up becoming a rabbit hole that you're caught in. And perhaps what you were just looking for, I don't know, you were just trying to run away from, I don't know, being alone by yourself for that moment. Or maybe sometimes we're sitting together, we're talking, and then your phone chimes, there's a message that comes in, you go in, you respond to that message. Right now, when you start responding to that message, you're no longer with me here, you are there on that internet thing that you're trying to do. And as real as as real as that may feel for you, I don't think is real enough. For example, we're sitting here, we are able to have this conversation, but I want to believe that the conversation would have felt different. Not necessarily that it would go different, but it would have felt different in person. This is
Yeah,
considering that I haven't seen you in a long time. You haven't seen me in a very long time. So
very long
all
time.
of that would also contribute to the atmosphere of the environment and the feelings that would come with us having this conversation. However, in the internet, we're limited to these words. Right now, as we're sitting here, you don't know whether I'm fidgeting with my feet. Maybe I'm nervous. You wouldn't know that because I'm showing you only this part that you need to see. The facade at the end of it, it's an illusion. I could be sitting here, I could be naked, only wearing like my thing. Like it's elusive. And that's why I say we are victims, because the illusion to all of us, it's only a few people, I guess, who kind of get tired of it. I don't want to say become aware of it. I think to some extent it takes you getting tired of it to become aware of how much of a problem it becomes. If it's not a problem for you yet, I guess, I don't think you have any business seeing it as a problem or as unreal to some extent, and
Yeah,
therefore you just keep on consuming whatever it is. Don't know if that answered your question.
yeah, it is clear, man. You said a mouthful. I like that you put it in a way that, because I wasn't thinking about it this way, like that. Um, that we are victims of this whole thing, right? And as you continuing speaking, I'm just thinking about why might we be victims of something that never existed? Well, it's been here for quite some time, but when I was growing up, internet was already here, but then it didn't affect my life like it is affecting my life now. So,
Yeah.
as much as internet existed when I was growing up, but it wasn't as evident as it is now. So now I'm thinking I've grown into this thing. And as I was growing up, I've integrated this thing into my life such that now it's becoming something that I'm so much dependent on that I cannot do anything. Well, I cannot do some things without it. You get me? So the problem, it could be that we are victims of this new thing because it is that very same thing that created the problem that made us become victims to this thing. So people are glued to the internet because of the void, you say, the void that we have that maybe some people cannot feel. So if you say, I have something inside of me that I cannot share with a friend or anyone for that matter, even in my closest friend or the closest person in my life, I cannot share that specific thing with them. Could it be that, yeah, people have different reasons, but when you just think about it, say, I have, like myself, I have a wife, right? But there are people who are married that do not speak about certain things, but a person would feel more comfortable speaking about that very same thing with an AI agent more than speaking about that with their wives or their partner or their husbands, right? I'm just thinking, could it be that we as humans, is it because of the way that we are wired that we find comfort in speaking about these things to, or in platforms where we will not get feedback like things that we want to hear, or is it because we're scared of being judged, or because it's not like people share things that when you hear them you would know actually throw judges and you start judging them. Now people share even feelings with these things, right? People even go as far as saying I feel more comfortable sharing my feelings with an AI more than sharing my feelings with a person, right? So no sane human being would come forward and judge you for sharing your feelings. But then why is someone more comfortable sharing their feelings with a something that is not conscious, something that does not care even about your feelings, than having a real person, a real human interaction, and then share those feelings, just pour your heart to them? Is it because as humans we are wired to think that there are certain things that humans cannot fix? Or because I'm just trying to understand why have we become victims to this thing, like so deep, because we are deeply gone into this thing, right? But why? Why is it that we found so much comfort in confiding to these things instead of humans?
Yeah. I think it's because we are vulnerable, one, and because we are vulnerable, we are exploitable. We are also scared. Like, not because we don't I don't think we are aware that we are scared, but I think the feeling of being scared is there. It's something that we feel, right? And this is why you wouldn't trust someone with certain information, because you're scared. Like, you'll probably say that, no, I just don't trust so and so, instead of saying you're scared. But I think the truth is that we are scared. And this is also why people go to therapy. People would rather share with a therapist before AI, would rather share with a therapist than they would share with someone that they stay with, right? But therapy is not that cheap. it's not that accessible to many people, but AI is, right? And to some extent, it can offer what psychologists could offer, or at least the illusion is that it can offer that. But it may not always offer that, but in itself it feeds on us, right? It's like a toxic relationship, right, where someone feeds on someone else's insecurities. Like let's say I know that what's I'm trying to find a thing, a good example for that. You know, the idea of people having daddy issues. So let's say someone has daddy issues, right? And then you go to them and you are aware of this, right? And you kind of see how they need someone who's going to be big to them, someone who's going to father them, even in a relationship. And because you are aware of that, you exploit that. In that relationship, you kind of tend towards the role of being a father, more less of a lover, but I guess we can disagree to agree on that. But you play the role of a father. But this is, if you are aware of it, this is to keep this person here, because this is what this person lacks in their life. So you are feeding on their insecurities. And I think that's what it's constantly doing. It's feeding on our insecurities or our vulnerabilities, as I would have mentioned, and how exploitable we are in this case. Don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, it does. It does. So it's constantly feeding into our insecurities, so much so that we feel that, okay, because it's an illusion, right? So it's selling us that illusion that, okay, actually, this is what I've always needed in my life. So I'm going to take this illusion, whether I am aware of it or I'm not aware of it. But whatever my state is, I'm gonna take that because it feeds into my insecurities. It feeds into the void that I have inside of me. Therefore, I'm gonna keep trusting this thing
Yes,
like
but
that.
yeah, it's what you said. However, the person, the victim, isn't aware of the fact that that's what's happening to them. They aren't aware that they are insecure. They aren't aware that they are vulnerable. They aren't aware that they are being exploited. Otherwise, they would mitigate that they would take different measures to sort of navigate that. So that's why I'm saying that we're a victim. We're not even aware of that. This is what's happening to us. So if you were aware that someone is exploiting you, do you continue in a relationship with that person because
Not
they're,
really,
you
not
know,
really, not
yeah,
really.
yeah. So you wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
So it speaks to the lack of awareness in the things that are happening to us. Yeah, yeah,
No. Okay. No, I understand it, man. I understand it. So we just keep trusting this thing, sharing everything we share with it.
yeah.
But then you as a person now, because we're different as people and the things that we go through, you wouldn't share, well, I'd like to assume, with the AI system, with the AI system, the wildest things that are happening or that have happened in your life, the deepest or the most private things in your life with AI. Say now you were in a situation where you really I'm not saying it's just an hypothetical example. Say you were in a situation where now you really need something, man, something, someone or platform to offload. I know you do poetry. Maybe that's your go-to platform for just expressing your feelings and everything. But just say that was not in the picture, right? You didn't do poetry. Just strip that away. So, do you think you would resort to even starting, right? Even starting sharing the deepest things in your life with the AI system? Do you think that it would happen in your life? Do you think it would happen if you found yourself in that situation?
Yeah, I think first of all, brave of you to assume that I don't share some of the most deepest things with AI,
Hey,
and
man.
uh, yeah, I think now, so I think the difference comes here, right? If you are aware, that means sometimes you can, like, let's say some like that issue of a thing, yeah? that example that I gave of someone manipulating someone in a relationship because maybe they realize, okay, this person has daddy issues, I'm gonna do this, and all of that, right? But what if someone is aware of themselves, however, they play along to what the other person thinks they are suffering from, just so that they can get whatever. Maybe they too they want to get something out of that. So they could willingly participate in that. So, but this is to say that personally, I do share whatever it is that I feel like sharing with AI. I have little concern as to where they take my information, because I think one way or the other they are accessing my information. They are taking this. My thoughts are the least personal things they take. They probably even have my card numbers. They have like my ID number probably. Yeah. They probably have. You probably have put in your ID number on some website somewhere. You don't know who they shared that information with. You probably have put in your card number somewhere. You don't know who that information sits with at the end of the
You
day.
know what my problem
Maybe
is, man?
someday.
With it's different, right? I'm gonna say it is different. Sharing your personal information with an AI system like ChatGPT, for example, or Claude
Mm,
AI or Gemini, whatever AI agent that you use, sharing that information with an AI system is different from sharing your information with, let's say I'm doing an online purchase, right? And then I put my card
mm.
details there, and then they store my details in their database or wherever they store it. Okay. In that scenario, say I'm doing an online purchase, they don't take my ID and train an AI system with them. You get me? They don't take my
I
demographic
get.
information and do other things. But specifically AI, open AI, for example, their models, they learn using your demographic information.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me a second. I just need to switch off something this side. I'll be
Yeah, no
back.
problem.
Okay. I'm back. Okay. I get what you're saying, right? But this is what I'm going to. This is why I think the way I think. For example, I go on TikTok. I yap. I have a lot to say on TikTok, right? And TikTok is able to translate my word, like whatever. It's able to transcribe my words, right? You find that I posted a video and then it adds like its own subtitles. Sometimes it gets it wrong. Sometimes, but like the errors are like a very minimal, right? And that in itself, I'm already sharing information with these platforms. We don't know what relationships these platforms have. We don't know the relationship between TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. I'll give you an example. You set in your contacts, like, no, you set it not to pick up your contacts. But some way, somehow, sometimes when it suggests the people that you should follow, these are people from your contacts. It doesn't explicitly say that they're from your contacts,
Yeah,
but these are people from your contacts. Where did you get these people? You are not on my contacts. You never popped up on my follow thing. But I've known you for a long time. Why didn't it pop you up people you could know? But the people who are in my contacts, they're forever here on people and suggesting these are who you could follow, right? And this is why I'm saying that they have either way they have our information, and I also don't know. We don't know like that relationship that they have. And you mentioned the idea of the thing of, yes, when you put your information into a website to say to purchase something and that information doesn't go wherever, the belief is that it goes into a specific database and it's stored in there safely and securely, right? That is the idea. However, for every solution, as if I were a criminal, right? If you create a solution, I'm gonna try to break your solution, right? And that is what criminals are constantly trying to do. The hackers, they're
cyber
constantly
attacks and
trying to
everything.
break
Yeah,
it. Yes, and this is why you would find that sometimes your data has been leaked on on the dark web. You never know what if you go. I don't know have access to the dark web, but if you were to go onto the dark web, there's a high chance you might find a piece of your information on the dark web being sold to
yeah, that's
someone.
true. That is true.
Yes, and this is to say that information is all like, let's say for example, you can maybe you've never were registered with a specific insurance company. But someday they call you and then they're advertising their insurance to you. You've never, maybe in your life, you've never met someone from that insurance company. Never. You've not been
Where are they
interviewed.
getting my
But
number
they're calling
from?
you anyway. Exactly. Where are they getting your number from? Did they thumb suck it? And like, sure. It's like, you understand? So this is where I'm going with this, to say that I understand that they have my information already. So what I am going to do, I'm just going to let them take it, but I would also want to get something out of them. So when I speak to I can give it whatever information that I think it is. I don't know who's going to access it. Are they whoever sees it? I don't know if they're going to see it and like, oh, okay, this is nowhere. It's up to them. Like, that's on them. But what I'm trying to do is get a specific conversation out of this. But because of this awareness of this, that I'm a victim and I could be exploited, I'm always ready to dispute whatever AI has to say as a response. I'm not always willing to accept it as Bible or truth or fact. No, 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 no. It's just, we're having a conversation. Like right now, we're having a conversation, you and I. I can disagree with
Yeah.
whatever you say. You can disagree with whatever I say. And that is the approach that I would take with AI. If I were talking and I'm like, I think you're reaching now, but I'll probably even tell it. Because if you dispute some of the things that it says, it comes back and apologizes, like, okay, sorry, that was my mistake, this and that. You understand? So it's not. Yeah, like, you should try it. Say
Yeah,
something
I know,
that
I
you
know, I
know
know.
for a fact.
And that is my problem
Yeah,
with specifically ChatGPT, right? That is my problem with
yeah,
ChatGPT. That it'll tell you something. It will be confident in its response.
mm,
You ask it something,
yes,
you throw in a question or whatever information you throw in there, and then it regurgitates a response so confidently that you would think that it is correct. But even if it's
mm,
correct, right, you tell it that, no, this is wrong. It will say, yeah, I
mm,
apologize. I know I made a mistake there, and then try to tweak the response a little bit, and then try to give you what you want to hear. And that even
mm.
sells the
So
illusion even more, man.
yes, and yeah. Actually, this is an example I wanted to give earlier, right? Some people have imaginary friends. Do
I've
you know
heard, yeah,
that?
I've heard.
Yeah, some people have imaginary friends, right?
Yeah,
Because where I'm going with this is that as humans, we are delusional generally, right? If you can have an imaginary friend and convince yourself that this person is real, they're as real as you want them to be, right? And similarly, now with AI, it can be a friend. So if you are delusional enough to say to take everything as it comes, it's Bible. You just take it, and it's a friend at the end of the day. And as much as we had the conversation of how it doesn't feel real because it's not, it's like it feels elusive, but it feels as real as it can get. And perhaps that's how much I'm willing to accept. This is what you're offering me. Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. Whatever bare minimum you're offering me, thank you. Same thing with that example of relationships. Some people give bare minimums in relationships, and people are so grateful for
yeah,
that bare minimum. Why? Maybe because people have never really been loved properly or whatever it is, but people are willing to accept bare minimum. Not because it's the safest thing to do or the right thing to do. People have little concern for that. People just want to fill these holes. Yeah.
yeah. And as people, man, I think saying that humans are delusional, right? So our degrees of delusion differ, right?
Yeah.
For real. So I was maybe, man, as people, and that's why we have rules, principles, laws, values, and everything like
Mm,
that. But a human, just a human being, maybe we were born to or wired in a way that we do the wildest things. Like it's our minds pushes us, or our hearts push us to want to do things that we wouldn't normally want to do around people. When people are around people, you behave a certain way, and when you're by yourself, you
mm,
behave a different way. So
mm,
now I'm reminded also of I don't know if you've played GTA, the game Grand Theft
mm. I
Auto.
know of it.
So there's
Okay.
Yeah, there's a game, Grand Theft Auto. Every person who played that game, I will tell you now, they found that adrenaline rush because it's all about killing people, killing cars, doing every crime you can think of in that game, right? So every person that has played that game, they found that adrenaline rush just from doing that thing, right? Just from killing a person, like
Mm.
you get a gun and kill a person, a knife and stab a person, you would hijack people, their cars, and it just feels normal, right? But it's things that you wouldn't do in your real life.
In
Why?
your real life,
Is it because of principles, of consequences? You know that if I did this, it feels wrong, or is it because you feel comfortable doing that in a game because it's not real people, but then the idea of it gives you that adrenaline rush because you don't do it because it's a game, you do it because it makes you feel a certain way as a person.
mm.
So maybe now also bringing this idea back to AI agents and speaking with them and people having imaginary friends. Maybe humans were just wired to be wild. But
I think
because
so
of
too. I actually
principles,
agree with that.
but
I actually
because of
agree, but continue.
principles, laws, morals, which also plays a big part in the human life, morals and a person's moral compass. And because of all of those things, beliefs, we behave in a certain way. But then that's why you find that some
Yes.
people, when a person's behavior is outside of what you would normally expect from a human being, we consider them wild or absurd or just not normal, abnormal. There's something wrong in their minds when really maybe they're just being who or how humans were wired to be.
To be fair, fair. I'm thinking. So okay, I've been having this conversation lately. That to some extent you're not your brain. Like
Yeah,
I think the brain is like a secondary sensor. You know how our eyes would be sensors, our nose would be sensors, our skin, ears. Yeah. I think the brain is a secondary sensor. It receives the whatever information it receives from the primary sensors, which would be your eyes, your nose, and whatever it is, and it processes that. But also, I think another thing that I'm also struggling to also fathom properly is the relationship that my brain would have with me, because I think what the brain does, the brain consumes information from the environment, and based on, it's like an AI model, and based on the information that it has consumed, it kind of structures like a form of response depending on how you interpret that information. For example, if you live in a if you live in a very violent area, because your brain would have consumed that information, the reaction would be for you to maybe try keep yourself safe, right, from all the
yeah,
chaos. But for someone, it can be that okay, if you can't beat them, join them. Like instead of running, let me find a way to fend for myself. Someone would say, okay, I'm going to move out of this place entirely. I'm not going to be a part
yeah,
of this anymore because wow, I can't survive here at all. So I think our morality comes from us as who, like, that's what I'm saying. I think we're not our brains. Our brains are probably just something that we use to navigate the world, but I think our morality comes like deeply from ourselves. And but now, because the world is not a safe space, it's a scary place, right? It's easy to end up, I think that's what happens to most of us. We end up becoming our brains. We end up assuming our brains as our personalities, and our brains are so clouded with so much from the world. Our brains receive everything from the world, and they've been shaped by the world over time. And so, and then you speak of, I think you speak of extremism on kind of there's this example that you GT, when you speak of GTA, people like go on a killing spree, and I think these are also some of the things that
yeah,
lead
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
addictions, right? Yes, it kind of ties back to the to how the conversation started, actually, when we were talking about how AI can be addictive in itself. So similarly, even things like GTA can be addictive, and I think what they end up leading to sometimes, it's some form of extremism. And I'll give some example of extremism. Maybe that's outside GTA, right? Let's say people who what's the word for those people? But people who jump like on jump from one skyscraper to another. There's a sport where people would just like jump from
Yeah, I know the
skyscrapers,
sport. I know the
and it's
sport.
like and it yes, it comes with like an adrenaline rush. Like it's exciting for them. Like the fact that I almost died, but I didn't die, like it's exciting. But I guess for people in GTA, it's like I can push this, I can kill as many people, but it's never going to be real. But it just pushes it. It's a form of extreme, so they can do the most horrible things that you would want to do. No one's going to hold you accountable for them. It's a game. It's just a simulation at the end of the day. So no one's
Yeah,
going to be gunning for you because of that. But I think generally, addiction leads to some form of extremism. I think so, and I will tell you why I think so. Think of sex, right? People have sex, and you think of it as like just maybe let's say woman, male, and then penetration and whatnot, right? And that could be the simplest form of sex, right? But people will go into bondage. People would want to be tied down. People want to be slapped. People would want to be burned. Or people want to do like all this things. Like it's so that's why this is the form of extremism that comes with some of this addiction. It comes, it's an adrenaline rush, that adrenaline rush that you speak of. But I mentioned that sport of hopping from one building to another. I mentioned sex now, but even smoking sometimes people want to get higher and higher and higher and higher. Like it's, or like maybe some of them will be talking like, like this thing got me so high, and then okay, no, like try this on this one. It's like about like getting to these extremes, like then that's the addiction in it, that people just constantly want to go to an extreme like of things. But I think it goes back again to the void that we have, right? Some of these things, when we're done with them, like we feel so fulfilled. You feel like I was so alive in that moment. And I guess a part of you, or part of that void, has been filled, however temporary it is. Or I don't know if it's permanent, but I doubt in this kind of thing it would be
yeah,
permanent. I think there's other ways of actually filling the void in a much more sustainable way. But matter of fact, we are doing it. We become extreme, and that's what we do.
that's crazy, man. But where is the line drawn then? Where do we draw the line? Because sometimes people do the
Who
wildest thing
draws?
and will tell you that no, is because now, yeah, addictions are different, right? An addiction comes in
Mm,
so many different forms. Some people are
mm,
addicted to the wildest things, and some addictions are at a
mm,
cost of other people's lives, right? A person will tell
mm.
you, because I once had this, a serial killer said they get an adrenaline rush from just from killing a person. You get me?
Yeah.
Just from killing a person, or yeah. But the point I'm trying to get across here is that some addictions come at a cost of other people. I understand maybe when your addiction is just affecting you and you alone, maybe that's understandable. But as soon as something affects another person, then it becomes a problem, right? I
Mm,
know we have principles as humans, we have beliefs, values, morals. Um, do you think
mm,
then, because I would like to believe, man, that no person in the world was born to become a problematic being in society, a matter or anything like that. But when you
mm,
say a serial killer, for example, that would tell you that it's not me, it's just a feeling or an urge that I get to kill a person, and then I feel
mm,
satisfied in a way. You get me? So now, aren't morals supposed to be playing a role there, or principles? Basic, simple things, man. Killing a person or doing something that is the opposite of promoting well-being to another people or to another person or other people is morally wrong, right? So if I do something and it hurts
mm.
you, that is an immoral act. If I do something and it hurts another person, it's an immoral act. But if I claim that morality is something that is objective, I know that killing a person is wrong, or I know that hurting another person is wrong, then where do we draw the line? Or when does that come into play? I have this addiction, but at
Okay.
the same time, we are moral beings. We are humans, right? Because I'd like to believe that you also believe that humans are moral beings. Um, so is it because maybe the addiction becomes too strong and then it makes me forget that, hey, listen, man, I'm a moral being. I shouldn't be doing this. And then I do it anyway. Yeah. Because there are things that don't affect other people and you do them. And the reason is that, it's just affecting me. That's quite understandable. But now, when something affects another person, an addiction becomes a problem. Where do we draw the line? Or what are your thoughts on that?
What are my
Still
thoughts
in
on
the
that? I
net,
think
yeah,
I had
still.
asked who. I think I had asked who draws the line, but what I would say, I think I'll take you back to like to earlier in the conversation where I mentioned that I think we are not our brains. Like there's someone deeper within you, and I think that person is that one. That's the person with the correct moral compass. I think our brains recognize morality, but whether we practice it or not, comes from like our inner selves. So, and this is where I also mentioned that. However, as much as like we have that, like I think people call it an inner child. Let's say the inner child. I think they are probably the ones with like the right moral compass because I think they're empathetic enough, right? Um, but now, remember what we mentioned about how some people end up becoming their brains. Like, yes, you are not your brain, but we end up assuming our brains as us. And I also mentioned that I think our brains recognize morality, but whether you practice it or not, now would come to like you.
Okay,
But if
wait, wait.
you
Is
are
is
in
is
your
it?
head,
Sorry to interject there. You think it's a brain that recognizes
that's cool.
morality, or it's you, the self? Is it the brain that recognizes morality? Because remember, the brain is part of the biological system that works with other
Mm-hmm.
senses in our body, right? And then there's a self that lives. I
Yes.
don't know where it lives, but deep within us, there's a self
Yes.
that sometimes acts based on uh, the signals or instructions, or I don't know, but it's affected by what the brain is doing. Do you think, because you just said that brain recognizes morality, do you think that it is the brain that recognizes morality, that no, this is wrong, this is right?
I think both the inner self and the brain both recognize morality. However, one only recognizes it, which would be the brain, I think, in this case. The inner self, I think, is what practices morality. But if you're letting your brain run your life, I think this is where the delusion will come in. Because you're no longer seeing, you're no longer recognizing. Because, like, I think a child knows what's just and what's not just. If you treat a child unfairly, they will always react to the unfairness. But this is up until to a point where they start getting consumed by the world, right? And they start acting slick in a sense that they can see that you're being a trickster, they trick you back. You see, now it's no longer them reacting to you and being unjust or fair. Now they are leaning into their brain to say, okay, I can recognize this. So it's a game of two. I can play this too. Maybe I can't play it as well, like so well right now, but I'm playing it anyways. And that's why I think it's our brains that do most of these things. I think our inner selves probably just want to have fun and have a good time and just be at peace most of the time. And our brains are what wants to engage with the rest of the world because they've already consumed so much of the world. But also, I think it's because they were made for the world, like they were made to interact in this world. And I think if you can get your inner self to command your brain to act accordingly, and I think that might be a superpower in itself. And then, but I think your question is, where do we draw the line in terms of morality, right? I think we draw it where we know that this is unjust, this is unfair, and we always know. And I think it also goes to what you mentioned, harming the next person. I think that's the worst kind of result that can happen out of these, that you are having whatever battles you're having, whatever addictions you're having, and then they end up impacting the next person. I think that is not kind. That's not cute. But this is also not to say that it's kind to yourself to experience some of these things that you would do yourself because of this state of mind that you're in. Because I think what I've realized is that we fail to also be kind to ourselves. And if we fail to be kind to ourselves, how are we to be kind to other people? For example, jumping off one building to another, that's so dangerous. You could die or you could break something. That's not kind to yourself. Yes, it's thrilling, but is it kind to yourself? We go
Yeah.
into what? So I don't know what other things, what other extreme things people do. Like people maybe like this thing of where people whip each other with things. Like there's sports of fighting. They actually, yeah, there's sports, there's fighting sports, and those people get like adrenaline rush and whatnot. But those people will intentionally put themselves in those situations. And this is to say that these people are actually not necessarily being kind to themselves, not because they don't feel the pain, but they're willing to go with it. So if someone can be unkind to themselves, I think it's also a bit, we're kind of reaching to expect them to have that empathy to themselves. Okay, sure. Sorry about that. I
Okay.
was talking to my brother. Yeah. Kind of where were we?
Being kind to ourselves.
Yeah, like we struggle with being kind to ourselves. So now there's a struggle in terms of where do we actually draw the line? Do we know that we have to draw a line? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
kind of like ideally we should draw the line where the next person gets hurt. But now the thing is, sometimes we don't even recognize that ourselves we are getting hurt in the process. So how much empathy do we have for other people? Because I think people tend to be empathetic towards people because of experiences they've had. Like if I've thinking lost my arm maybe at some point, I'm able to empathize with someone who now loses their arm because I know how it feels to have had a hand and then suddenly I don't have a hand anymore, right? But if I can't empathize, if I can't like recognize that if I can't go through I don't care that my hand is gone or has been chopped off, whatever it is,
It's
what
like,
are we going to
it is
do?
what it is.
So I don't think I gave you I don't think I gave you the answer you were
Yeah.
probably looking for,
No,
but
no, I wasn't looking
yeah,
for any
yeah.
specific answer. I just wanted to get your brains. Yeah. I just wanted to get your brains on that one.
Okay, cool.
Being kind to
But
yourself,
what
that's
do
very
you think? Where
powerful.
do you think? I mean,
What?
yeah, I think there was a glitch. I was going to say, where do you think we should draw like the line in terms of morality? I understand this is you asking me most of these questions, but I think I would love to hear from you. Like, where do you think we should draw the line in terms of morality?
Man, I think sometimes, as much as we know that doing some things is wrong, but we end up doing them anyway, goes back to what I said to you earlier that as humans, right, inherently, we are not the best people or the best creatures to ever exist in the world. We
Oh, I
inherently,
think
I
I'm
wouldn't say
losing
we.
you. Like,
Can you hear me?
I think there was a glitch. I'm like sometimes I can see you're talking, but the sound is gone.
Now can you hear me?
Like keeps on
Can you?
coming and going. Should I? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, now you're
Can you
lagging.
say
That's the
something more?
problem.
I'm lagging. Yeah,
Uh,
okay. Shall I join? Shall I rejoin? Shall I cut a thing and rejoin?
yeah, let's try that. Yeah, let's try
Okay.
to
I'm
leave the room and then rejoin.
I'm gonna rejoin. Cool. Because I'm my father doing the same thing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me? Am I not lagging anymore?
No, you're not lagging. I think this thing had gone too far, and I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, I'm tired now.
yeah. But I think you can start over like with answering your question in terms of like
Yeah. What do I think? I think, man, as much as we know that um, some actions lead to bad consequences, meaning that they are not good actions, so we shouldn't be doing certain things. It just goes back to us. What I said earlier that as humans, we are not good people. Like we're not good people and say, me, I'm the most kindest person. We're not the kindest creatures in the world,
Mm.
right? So that's why you find that with the levels of actions and things that we do, we differ. Some people would rather do, not that they would prefer doing it, but they would resort to doing the wildest things, even if it's at the cost of other people.
Mm.
Because as much as we have principles, we have morals, we have values and everything in life, at the end of the day, the urge that comes from inside it, that comes from being human, right? And maybe the experiences, of course, and also the past experiences, they push you to do the wildest things. But you know that at least every human being should know that if I wouldn't want something be done to me, I shouldn't do it to other people as well. All right.
Mm.
Or if I wouldn't want someone else to do something that would harm me in a certain way, I shouldn't do that very same thing that would harm other people in that very same way. At least that should be the basis, right? And then other things come. I think that's where we should be drawing the line. But unfortunately, to some people, even though a person may have or may claim to have a moral campus or a good moral campus, but their actions say otherwise, some urges, man, they push people to the edge, and they found themselves doing the wildest thing. And this is not to say that people who've done the cruelest things in the world are justified or can be justified. Of course not,
Mm.
right? But sometimes it just takes knowing that I'm doing this. Why? What is the reason I'm doing this? Like, why do you think is pushing you to do this? Because oftentimes it's something that pushes you. You don't just wake up and decide to be to go to rob a bank. You don't just wake up someday and decide to, hey, I'm just gonna walk on the street and kill a person. If you were right in your senses, you get me. So some people, it's because of addiction, as you say, which sometimes addiction is addiction, whether it comes in a form of sex, cigarettes, alcohol. Addiction is just addiction, right? It behaves the same way, regardless of the form. If it's not treated, it will come and haunt you. It will make you do bad things. And unfortunately, as we said, some addictions are come at a cost of other people. So addiction is addiction. Sometimes people act out of their senses. People act out of their comfort because they are being pushed by this urge. They get this urge to do something, even though sometimes you know that, no, I shouldn't be doing this, but then the edge becomes so strong that you can't resist. So I think it's realizing that, okay, no, if it's happened once, maybe once I get back to my senses, the urge to do something goes away, maybe just try to get help, man. Try to deal with the addiction or anything like that. It just takes realizing and acknowledging that I wouldn't want this to be done to me, therefore I shouldn't be doing it. So what should I do? What measures can I take? You understand? Because obviously, if you're not gonna do something and say, "Yeah, I get the adrenaline rush from doing this," you're gonna keep doing it because it's the brain at the end of the day. The biological process does not really care about your morality, or your principles, or anything like that. So how your brain is wired, if there's something wrong or there's something missing, right? Your brain will keep wanting to make you want to do this thing. It will not care whether you think this is right or you think this is wrong. So if you, it just takes understanding and acknowledging that no, this is wrong. Let me just take measures to work on it and fix it. So that's what I think. That's really what I think,
Okay.
man.
Because as you're talking right now, right, I'm thinking, could it be, yes, we speak of it from a point of addiction, right? But could it be that some, and also I think you mentioned that, and this is not to say that some of the horrendous things that would have been done in the past that everything can be justified. That's what you said,
Yeah.
that you're not trying to justify those, right? And the thing that had me thinking, right? Could it be that some people are simply reacting to the world? Like, in a sense that I think rebellion in itself, for example, rebellion can be a reaction to say that I'm just tired of this world and the way you guys are living, and I'm just like rebelling, right? But let's say someone, when they were young, they witnessed their parents being killed in front of them, and that, I guess, leaves like a huge dent or scar if it heals. But if it doesn't heal, I guess it just becomes a forever open wound. And if someone, and obviously that would affect someone's mind psychologically, right? And it's not easy to speak as to where their brain would go to there. But like, what if their reaction to such an incident, instead of just saying, "God, God, whatever happened, happened. Let me move on," they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna get revenge, and the world's going to know me." And perhaps that's how. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like what? Yeah, and
yeah,
because
for
the world
real,
has
for
been
real.
so unkind to me, has done me so dirty. Everyone's going to pay, and it was one person who did that to them, but like everyone now is going to pay because it's things of this world that have happened to me that have scarred me so badly, and then now everyone is going to pay for that. Like, do you think some people are just simply reacting
I
in a
think so, and
sense?
I strongly believe that some people that is the case, man, right? Because goes back to what I said. I don't think there's a person who's born and they are destined to become a murderer or a serial killer or a person who just inflicts pain to other people. I don't think there's any person that's born for that or destined for that. I think it's,
Oh,
you know, how life is just a collection of actions. So where you are right now is because of the collective actions that have happened in the
yeah,
past, which led you to be
yeah.
where you are here right now. So it could be that, for example, someone who experienced abuse growing up, they had a scar that was not healed, and then it came back. Because one thing about childhood traumas, they come back in your adulthood. They affect your life when you become an adult, man. So if you still have childhood traumas and scars that were not healed, um, they will in a way affect your adult life. So it could be that they're just reacting to things that happen to them because of certain events that happened in their life. They lost faith in certain things, like in being a good person. Maybe a person was a good person growing up, man. But because of one event or two events, that was enough for them to say, okay, you know what? I'm done with this being a good Samaritan thing. I'm just going to live life to the fullest. I know people who were saints, and by saint, in the context of um, outside of religion or anything like that. Like, if you know what a saint, are you still here?
Sorry, I was just, it was my alarm was saying that it's 10
Okay,
o'clock.
okay,
Sorry.
no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Right. So I know people who moved from being saints to being to being yo. I can't even like find a word to explain this. It's not even being wild, right? But people who, you know, when you see a person, they have a good heart. They don't do the things that people would normally not consider as right for a young person to do, like living a life. But because of one event in their life, that was enough for them to switch. You get me? And that is the same case for everything in life, man. So it takes that one or two or three events to make you switch up from being this person to be another person or to react in a certain way. So it could be that some people are just reacting, right?
I just
And it's
reacted.
triggers. There's this guy from Joburg, a serial killer. He's arrested. I think he's still behind bars now. I don't know if you've heard of his story. It's called Moses Sitole. Moses Sitole.
Name doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, just
And
looking him up on Google maybe when you get time. That guy's a serial killer, chief. You understand? Anything that has to do with a woman, anything that has to do with a woman. If he came across a woman, he just killed them, right? And I was reading about him and his story, now how he grew up, and putting pieces together, not saying what he is behind bars for and what he's done is justifiable. Of course not, right? If you've done horrendous things, especially to other people, you must face the might of the law, right? Actions have consequences. But I'm just looking and reading about his story, and I realized that maybe what led to him being the person that he is now is how he grew up, right? Because he grew up facing a lot of abuse from parents, when he was in a relationship, he was abused, all of that. And then there was this one incident, he was, I don't know, he was defending himself or what. And then he killed a person and he killed his partner. A lot of events, man, many events happened that led him to committing his first murder. And then after that, and more events started happening, and then everything happened. They just kept pushing him more and more towards the person that he ended up as today. So maybe sometimes it is that people are just reacting to events in life or things that happen to them. It's not because they were born bad people or they're just terrible human beings by nature. It's just events that make them switch up from being good people to being terrible people. So it could be that. Yeah.
And would you say that perhaps the reason I mean, I guess you and I have probably experienced whatever we experienced in our lives, and it has shaped our minds the way it has shaped them, right? And so, would you then say that the reason why we haven't maybe reacted to be serial killers or to do horrendous stuff, what would you think speaks to that? Because I want to believe that we probably would have experienced some unfair stuff in our lives, and why is it that we haven't reacted in a way that is that leads us to